Thank you all for joining our second session of our Green Careers. Before we begin, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Juanita. I am Canopy's Youth Programs Manager, and I will be co-hosting today.
And my name is Joshua Flores. I'm a teen urban forester, and I will also be co-hosting today.
For those who are unfamiliar with Canopy, we are a nonprofit organization that plants and takes care of trees where they are needed the most. And we hope that one day every resident of the Mid Peninsula can step outside to walk, play, and thrive under the shade of healthy trees. Another thing that we like to do is to advocate and share about all the different careers that exist in this field. And today's session is about nonprofit careers. Let me go ahead and jump to the correct screen. On this call, we have three wonderful guest speakers who are doing amazing work. I won't say too much about them because they will have the chance to introduce themselves. But on this call, we have Belinda, Rosa, and Zeima, and they will shortly introduce themselves. But before we begin, I want to go ahead and kind of share the format of today's session. Each panelist will be asked the same question, and each panelist will have about 3 to 4 minutes to respond. Once everyone has responded, we will go ahead and ask the second question. Does anyone have any questions so far? Okay. And Jojo's going to share a little bit about Zoom etiquette.
So, just for some Zoom etiquette, as a reminder to please keep your mics off until we do open up the floor to everyone. And if you can always use the little emotion icon to react, agree, or show some love for our guest speakers. And you can also use the chat to express your feelings, concerns, questions. And thank you.
Thank you. With that being said, let's go ahead and jump into the session. Again, we're going to ask each panelist the same question, and then after they have all responded, we will move into the next question. So the first question is, tell us about your job. What attracted you to it, and what does your day-to-day look like? And the order will go Rosa, Belinda, and Zeima.
Yeah, sounds good. Do you want me to start now?
Yeah, yes, please.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me tonight. My name is Rosa Nelson, and I am a new grad student, but served for a long time with Nuestra Casa as the Water Justice Coordinator. So that's what I'll be talking about tonight. And my apologies, I don't have slides. Like I said, I'm just starting school, so I'm kind of figuring out the doing both at the same time. But yeah, so as the Water Justice Coordinator, I have been in charge of everything from like water quality testing to some like grants and development and how we're going to build our program. But I can start on like a smaller scale, start with what attracted me to it. I really knew that I wanted to work for a nonprofit in college, just because I really liked the social justice classes that I was taking. But I quickly realized I did not like field restoration work. I was working at a native plant nursery, and for me, it was just like every day I was kind of like a little bit sunburnt and like very physically exhausted. So that was quickly was like, maybe I don't want to do this for like a career. And so I happened to know Adriana, maybe some of you know her, who was leaving the position. And we just kind of got to talking one day when we had a joint meeting together, and it just kind of took off from there. So that was like, I was really excited to be working in East Palo Alto. It's somewhere that my grandmother worked. My grandmother lived very close by and worked in East Palo Alto for a lot of her life. My aunt went to Ravenswood when Ravenswood still existed, the high school. And so I just felt like there was a connection there. And I was really excited to get to move into the South Bay where a lot of my family's from. And then for day to day, I think, like I said, it can really vary, which is something I like too. It's not a stagnant position. So you get to do a lot of different things. So, you have your emails and your communications, right? But then you can also be like out, depending on what funding you have, testing people's water or doing community outreach. I really like going to the EPA farmers market. I don't know if anyone else likes to go. But yeah, go out there, do community outreach, or I really like the grant writing and development part of my job, and that's just figuring out strategically how we are going to have enough money to operate and continue to serve our community. And I just really think that that's the most important part, right? Is making sure that our community members are happy and are trust us to come to them. So yeah, I'll pass it on to Belinda, I think is next.
Cool. Thank you, Rosa. So hi, everyone. Really excited to be here with you all today. My name is Belinda Magallon. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm the Water Justice Fellow at Nuestra Casa. So I work pretty closely with Rosa, on some of our water equity work and our water justice work here in East Palo Alto. What attracted me to it? So this is actually my second full-time job. I graduated my undergrad back in 2020, and right afterwards, I actually started working in Congress. That I had interned there when I was an undergrad for the House of Representatives. I thought that's what I wanted to do, and I hated it. I really didn't like it. I felt like nothing was getting done. I felt like communities' voices weren't heard. So I decided to go back to grad school. And when I was in grad school, I kind of search for more opportunities that had more of an environmental justice focus, specifically here in the Bay Area. And my program actually had a posting that Nuestra Casa posted looking for a summer fellow. And that's how I got connected with Nuestra Casa. I grew up here in the East Bay, but for me, it was really important to work with communities in the Bay Area on environmental justice issues. So I got connected with them. I did some environmental justice work that summer, and I really loved it. I loved kind of the work that Nuestra Casa was doing, from like their community education to the policy work, and just really centering like communities' voices in East Palo Alto and surrounding communities when it comes to addressing these larger issues. So I definitely wanted to work for an organization like Nuestra Casa, and I was really lucky that by the time it came for me graduating grad school this past spring, there was an opportunity that opened up to work on, the water justice program. So I was really excited. I think I really like working in the nonprofit sector as opposed to working for the federal government. I personally would not want to do that again. So yeah. So in terms of what my day-to-day looks like, I do a whole bunch of work. Rosa and I work pretty closely together. So we work with like different sectors of government or just different sectors in general. We work with researchers at Stanford. We work with, the city of East Palo Alto and the county. We work with some private sector, like, consultants who maybe have worked in the field working on like water justice work for a while. And then we also do like some community education work. We have an estuary youth council that we work with, as well as a community water task force that we're developing. So just kind of, discussing some of the issues that community members may be feeling when it comes to their water, some, distrust that's happening in the community, hearing them and kind of trying to work to find ways to, address the issue and come up with solutions. And then we're also doing like some policy work. Water issues have been we've heard a lot going on in the community in East Palo Alto, and we want to make sure that we're actually doing things to address it, looking at both long-term solutions, but also short-term solutions to really make sure that, people that we do equity and people are happy with what's coming out of their tap and they feel comfortable drinking the water. So that's a little bit of the work we do. The day-to-day varies, emails, all of that. Lots of meetings, but yeah, I love what I do, and I'm really thankful to be here full time now. And I guess I'll pass it over to our next panelist.
Okay, can you see my screen? I do have some photos.
Yes.
Lovely. Hi, everybody. I'm Zeima Kassahun. I work for Friends of the Urban Forest, and I am the tree planting program manager. So, oh, and I use she, her pronouns. So Friends of the Urban Forest is really similar to Canopy. We are a greening organization that works to plant street trees and street gardens in the sidewalks of San Francisco. So I've been at the organization for about 2 years now. I started off as a tree planting manager. So essentially, my role was to walk like the blocks of a neighborhood that we've designated that needed more trees and see where we could plant um, a variety of different trees. And then I'd pick the species and I would facilitate a day of a volunteer event where we get trees in there. I did that for about 4 years. And then I've more recently began running and developing the actual tree planting program. So what attracted me to our work, went a little too far, with our mission, I will go into it in a little bit, but my background is almost exclusively in academia. So a lot of the work that I had done had been very like abstract research, like publishing, like it wasn't really real world tangible effects. And I wanted to have more of a positive impact in the communities I was working in. So I decided to leave academia and to go into the nonprofit realm. And that's how I found myself at Friends of the Urban Forest. And I've been there since, which I got really lucky to find a place that really fit my needs. So my day to day right now is a lot more like background work. So I work, I mostly like my work is meetings. I sit in meetings all day. And I work with other folks to make sure that our program runs seamlessly and that we're also like able to collaborate with other teams under the organization or even with other organization. So a lot of my work also is like grant reporting. I've spent all day today making maps so that I could send to our grant funders the locations of all the trees that we've planted. And then oftentimes I'm out in the field helping my team. We will walk blocks, as I mentioned before, and spray the sidewalk to let folks know that we're putting a tree there. A lot of community engagement, interacting with the folks that are getting trees and encouraging them to be a part of the process, pick the species, and then the day of plantings, which we just had one this last Saturday, and we have one on Friday, where a bunch of volunteers come out and plant trees, and it's a really fun, like heartwarming event. And if you haven't been to a tree planting, I strongly suggest you either join one of Canopy's or one of ours. It's a great experience. So, yeah, thanks.
Okay, thank you for your input. And for the next question, what was your journey to this line of work, and did you see yourself on this career path when you were younger, and why or why not? And for
Yeah,
the order, okay. I mean, if you want to go ahead and start, then you can start.
we can change the order. I'm sorry. I just assumed it would be the same.
Um, we can start with Belinda, um, Rosa, and Zayma again.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so my journey to this line of work, I kind of mentioned it a little bit in my intro, but yeah, I didn't really see myself working in a nonprofit when I graduated undergrad and when I was really starting my career. Um, I think it was really just kind of actually like working and just having these different experiences, like dipping my toes into different things to see really what I liked. And for me, it was really doing work that was more community oriented. And that's kind of, ended up being like the nonprofit sector for me. I think when I was in undergrad, I took a lot of environmental science classes too. So like I think hearing from my professors, like learning more about environmental justice, what does that look like? What are some like examples of, these environmental racism and environmental injustices that are happening throughout the country and communities like mine? Having just learning through coursework and videos I think that really just sparked an interest. And I was like, this is really interesting to me. I want to get more experience on this issue. So yeah, I'm really happy that I have this, the career path that I'm going down now. Like I said, I did not like working in Congress and the federal government. And if that's something you're interested in, that's totally fine. I think for me, it was really just trial and error, seeing, what I did like and kind of trying to figure out what path was best for me. Um, did I see myself on this career path when I was younger? Um, Not really. I think I always wanted to do more of like policy work and working on like social justice issues, just because that was something that I was really passionate about. My mom would get a lot involved in like local politics, or take me to like a protest or like a city council meeting. Like that was something that I was exposed to a lot when I was younger. And I kind of just took an interest in that. And yeah, when I went into undergrad, I ended up doing political science from the bat, and I stuck to that major all throughout. So yeah, I think it was definitely a journey, definitely trial and error. And I think if any of you are kind of like, I don't know what I want to do for my career, I think it's really great that you're attending like sessions like this to hear kind of what's out there and see if anything sparks your interest. Like, and it's, don't be scared to like try something, volunteering, interning. I think like through internships and stuff and just exposing myself to a lot of different opportunities and careers was really helpful for me to figure out what I was passionate about and what I wanted to do. So yeah, I guess I'll pass it over to Rosa.
Yeah, thanks, Belinda. Yeah, so I think I touched on this a little bit, but I can go more into depth about it. So my undergraduate career, I started off being a fully environmental science major and thinking that I would just go straight into a PhD after and just, a very different trajectory. Then thought I didn't actually like academia as much as I thought I would, even though I'm back at it now, but that's mostly just to get the like formal education. And I realized that I really liked environmental studies and I didn't like the sciences as much. And like Belinda said, like if you love science, like definitely go for it. There's so many opportunities and it's so needed. It just did not resonate with me. And I took a lot of environmental justice classes and I really liked those. And they helped me kind of think about a lot of scientific concepts in a different way. And then, like Belinda mentioned, I really recommend internships, or even just like if there's someone that you look up to, bugging them about internship opportunities. Because I realized a lot of like professors, teachers will get a lot of like opportunities across their desk. And like I get things all the time and I don't really know where to send them. So they just kind of end up in like a folder off to the side in my email. But those are really valuable opportunities. So yeah, go bother your mentor for opportunities. They might have some. Yeah, but then I just kind of in college really liked environmental justice, and that kind of helped guide me to being here. And then also realizing I wasn't super into restoration. I tried that I wanted to maybe be a wildland firefighter. I realized I didn't want to do that either. So it's okay too to kind of like try things until you find something that fits. Yeah, and I totally did not see myself in this career to start out, but I'm really glad that I'm here. And I will pass it on to Zeima.
Hey. All right. So I will probably just kind of do a lot of like repeating what they said. But I started college thinking I wanted to be an astronomer. Like I was like, oh, I need to go to space and like yada yada yada. I was like really dreaming big. And I'm glad I did it because then it like really put me on a good path. But like I was never gonna do that. I'm so bad at math. Like I'm so bad at math. I don't know what I was thinking. But I always knew I wanted to be in the sciences. And I like followed this like gut feeling within me, which is like I knew I wanted to make a difference. I knew I liked science. I knew I wasn't really good at math, but I had passion and grit. So I was like, all right, let me just like give it a shot. Who knows what will happen? So I was like in between degrees and I wasn't 100% sure what I wanted to do. But I was in this microbiology class. It was like a marine microbiology class. And this professor came up And at the time, I was like, I want to live in New Orleans. Like, that would be fun, which is so weird to think that that kind of like helped form where my life is now. And she was talking about how she lived in New Orleans. And I was like, that's cool. Let me go talk to her. So I spoke to her and we had a conversation. And she's like, hey, I have like an opening in my lab. Like, it's for free. Like, I would be doing volunteer work, but like, it's great experience. And I was like, I would love to do that. And so I joined her, and after like a year, I ended up doing these marine like research cruises where we'd go out to the Gulf of Mexico and I would like live on this ship for like a week. And my job was to like collect cores and like clean them out. And here I am like hosing down a core. And so then I found myself like in the midst of like the marine ecology world. And so I was doing marine microbiology. And then I through her found a job between my undergraduate and my master's, where I was doing environmental chemistry, like water chemistry. And so I got a lot of experience in the lab doing both of those. Both of those like experiences, although they have absolutely nothing to do with what I'm doing now, gave me the ability to like seem like a valuable candidate when I was applying to other positions. Like just knowing that like I had experience in a lab, that I knew how to like do science and stuff and I can follow direction was everything. Eventually I was like, okay, I don't know what I'm doing. Like I don't know what I want to do, but I just know it's this. Like I was getting so sick out on this boat in the middle of the ocean. I was like, I can't do this anymore. So I was like, I want to stay on land. So I applied to do tree ecology for my master's because I was like, whatever, like I'll keep testing out what my path is through a graduate degree. Again, maybe not the best idea, but I'm so glad I did it. Um, so then I ended up at Mississippi State University, where I got a graduate research assistantship, which means they pay for my entire master's degree and they were funding my life. So I got a free education and I was getting paid to do it. And I spent the next 2 years in the forest collecting data and research, and I eventually published my work. And I was having the best time of my life. Like I, through some weird decisions and like random arbitrary thoughts, I found myself exactly where I wanted to be. Like I knew I was comfortable here. I was doing what I wanted to do. I felt fulfilled. And then I stayed in like academia for a little bit. And then, as I told you, I was like, okay, let me go see what else is out there. So, like, keep testing, like, keep jumping and figuring it out. Like, no matter what you're doing, as long as you're moving forward, it's getting you somewhere. Like, somebody is going to see the work that you've put in and be like, oh, this person cares. They're trying. And that'll get you so much further than just like pontificating and wondering what the future might hold.
Thank you. I think it's so inspiring how all of y'all shared how it's okay not to know your likes and it's okay if your likes change. I know we have a lot of students on this call that are starting to apply for, 4 years and they're worried about needing to know like what they want to major in, and just hearing you all say that if you choose a major but down the line you say like, hey, maybe this is not for me, it's definitely okay. So I definitely appreciate all of y'all kind of sharing your personal stories. Thank you. With that being said, let's go ahead and move into our next question, which is, since today's session is about nonprofits, what's your nonprofit's mission and how does it align with your values? Um, let's go with Zeima, Belinda, and Rosa.
So I was super lucky in that I got to be at my organization while we were specifically hammering out what our mission, vision, and values were. And we had decided explicitly, like, we want to funnel what our organization does through the lens of environmental justice, because that is what is the utmost important to us. And so first we defined our values, and I will read them to you. Our first one being environmental justice. So we ground our work in movements of justice, recognizing and addressing environmental harms caused by racism. And that kind of helped jump off for everything else. Our next value being community. So we work in partnership with the communities we serve to grow trees and gardens. We did stewardship, which is we are multi-generational stewards of the land we occupy, working to mitigate the effects of climate change. Trust. We want to instill trust by being accountable and transparent about our work and ourselves. And then joy. A lot of what we do is laugh. Like a lot of what our work is grounded in joy. I think Jen, who's in this call, is our Green Teens leader, is also like a great example of that. Like, a lot of what we do is trying to bring joy to people, and we can't do that unless we have joy ourselves. And then so our mission itself is that we are connecting people with nature and each other by planting and caring for the gardens and trees of San Francisco, in the hopes to build like a climate resilient city where people and trees all thrive. And that aligned it so much with what I do. Like I am a Black woman first. I before anything else. Like that is my identity. I am first generation American. Like I am a victim of a lot of the harm that like environmental racism caused, and it was really important to me that I'm proud of the work that I do, and so I was really thankful to be a part of an organization that instills that value, but also that I got to be a part of the board that helped define how we move forward. And I've seen since establishing these about a year ago, like a lot of the work that we're doing is moving towards the lens of environmental justice and trust and stewardship and joy. And I'm very excited to do it. And really like a lot of that comes from the people that we work with, like you, like a lot of our green teens, a lot of our volunteers that we work with, they make us exactly who we are. So thank you.
Thank you, Zeima.
Cool. Well, thank you. I will go next. So our nonprofit, our mission at Nuestra Casa is that we exist to uplift Latinx families in East Palo Alto and throughout the Mid-Peninsula through community education, leadership development, and advocacy. For me personally, I think just kind of like that section of like uplifting Latinx families, in East Palo Alto. And for me, like I identify as Latina. I think it's really important to uplift the voices of, the Latinx community. And I feel like, especially here in the Bay Area and kind of where I grew up in, I didn't really have that sense of like community of like, really feeling like there was a nonprofit that was existing to uplift Latinx voices. I grew up in San Leandro here in the East Bay, and I had like my family and like my friends, but I didn't feel like there was like an organization that was super close to my community that was working towards that mission and that goal, and working with the community on education and empowering them to take ownership of like some of the issues that they're like over like their advocacy efforts and all of that. So I think for me that really drew me to Nuestra Casa, that there was an organization like that was really working for the community, that was empowering the community and really centering the community on some of these issues. When I was, in my last job, I was working for a member of Congress where I didn't feel like they were really centering the community all the times, even though they were like working for the people. And I think finding an organization that is really centering communities' voices and actively listening to what are your concerns, how can we work to address those, and empowering them to really like advocate and, address these issues, I think is just really important. Community-driven advocacy is really how we can have like equitable policy solutions, and also solutions that are reflecting like the needs and the values of our community members. I worked in policy pretty much for my whole career. I just finished my master's in public policy, and I think a lot of the times there isn't just that focus on community. So Nuestra Casa is always, just like I said, centering communities' voices. And I think that's really important and definitely in line with my values. And I'll pass it over to Rosa.
Yeah, pretty much everything that Belinda just said. I think Nuestra Casa does a good job at serving the East Palo Alto community. I will say that it really is like community first. Like that's our big mission, that it's community driven advocacy. So like our jobs exist because people are concerned about tap water. And we joke around, but I really mean this. Like it would be great if we were unemployed, right? Like if the problems were solved, the community felt okay, like then we should not have a job. So that's the goal, right? And I think I really like that because like I was hired on because there was problems or perceived problems. We're still kind of investigating that with our tap water. And so while it's safe to drink, right, people had concerns and really valid concerns. And so they made a full-time position for that because of the community's feedback. So I think finding a place that you can work that just has those values. I think also I'll say we have a lot of control around the way that research is done in our community, and that value of kind of being willing to like take on that extra work to make sure it's done in a respectful way and an equitable way with our community is really important. And that's a huge thing, just that our partners are like fantastic and equitable and really have a commitment to our community. But that a value of our organization is to be like cautious about that and careful and making sure that we're vetting community partners or research partners is great. Yeah. And then I think Belinda summed it up perfectly.
Thank you. It was really nice to hear your stories. For the next question, could you share an example or a favorite memory of the way you've seen your organizations and the work make a difference? And for the order, we'll do Zeima, Rosa, and Belinda.
Cool. All right. So I want to share a story about a collaboration my organization shared with Mission Verde and Calle 24, both of which are based in the Mission District of San Francisco. So the Mission District on 24th Street, sorry, I couldn't remember if it's Ave or Street. It is lined with ficus trees on both sides, and they are like monumental in the idea of that neighborhood. Like they are a part of the energy of that neighborhood. And unfortunately, ficus trees, when they get really large, drop massive limbs and they're really dangerous. And since that was such a busy corridor, it was a high risk issue to have those trees existing still. So unfortunately, they had to remove the trees, and that was devastating to the culture of the neighborhood. Like folks were hurt, understandably. These were a part of their family, a part of their neighborhood. Um, so it was a really stressful time, and a lot of good came out of it. So Mission Verde is a nonprofit that like just began because of this problem, and so their goal was to replant 150 trees to make up for the loss of, I believe, like 24 trees that were going to be removed in that area. So they had a massive beat ahead of them. The city was game, but they didn't have the resources to get the trees watered. Planting a tree is much more expensive than one would think. So Mission Verde teamed up with Calle 24 as well as Friends of the Urban Forest to try and help like mediate this problem. And so they created their own watering program. And so now they have people that work in the that live in the neighborhood join as volunteers, and they go tree to tree and they water the trees with a bucket, like literally by hand. And Friends of the Urban Forest and me, when I was a planting manager, I planted about 81 of those trees, and it was so beautiful. Like it was really cool to see something new and novel, like a brand new solution to a problem that is like far fetched. Like everyone has problems watering trees. It's really, really hard. And to see that like being born out of the neighborhood from people that lived in the neighborhood to continue the like essence of that neighborhood was just a really beautiful thing. And I was really excited to be a part of it. And recently, there was a filming or a showing of a documentary based on it. It's just a really moving aspect of the work I get to do. And it really is a blessing to work with the people that I do.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. So I think mine is pretty quick. Last year we got some funding for water filters, which is 100% just a band-aid solution. It's not a policy solution, or like hopefully we'll be doing some federal and state advocacy here shortly. So like tiny little solution, but seeing how excited everyone was about receiving their water filters just made me feel really happy. And also, I think made me proud of the fact that we had built a relationship with the community, that like all of them were claimed like in 2 weeks. And like yeah, yes, it took like many months for everyone to come in, pick them up, like totally. But just the fact that there was so much excitement and yeah, just to see. And then I think the other one too that I'll share that made me feel like the work was really worth it and like just really like rewarding was we had this like live TV show talk, and my Spanish is not great and I was not supposed to be the one doing it. and the person who was supposed to be speaking canceled last minute. And so then I was speaking, and it was like kind of a mess grammatically. I'm sure it's public. You can go watch me butcher it. But seeing the community like rally around me and be like just so supportive and like just really like excited that we were like showcasing their work and their questions and that we were involving them made me like, okay, this is worth it, even if it's a little bit embarrassing. Yeah. Yeah. So we look for the small moments, I think, then, because sometimes working in nonprofits can be overwhelming, but you look for the small moments and it's all worth it. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Rosa. I think there's two memories for me. I'm still fairly new to the water work, so I will also mention that. I just started actually working as a water justice fellow over the summer. So, but I think for me, I wasn't here throughout the whole time that this was going on, but it was actually we did a community needs assessment report that Rosa actually did, kind of just actually going and like, you know, like I said, or like Rosa mentioned, like our water justice program really started because we heard from community members about some concerns and like some mistrust that they had with their tap water. And from that, we got funding to actually do a report and like some water testing and some surveying to understand more of like what's going on with people's water, how are people feeling about it. And seeing that report come out, and also like last summer seeing all the work that Rosa was doing on it, just was really like really cool, really exciting. Just seeing her do all that work for the community, and I think also just all the doors that report opened for our water justice program afterwards. From that, we were able to have all these amazing partnerships to keep doing this work. While we did this initial report and we found that while the water may technically be safe, there's still ongoing issues that need to be addressed. And having that report out there gave us access to, a whole bunch of new partnerships. And I think it was really exciting to see kind of just how that ground level work of like Rosa going in and like testing people's water and just seeing how big of an impact that made and how much more we can do to really provide, addressing some of these concerns that the community has on their water. So that's definitely a big memory. And then I think another one for me is we just had a water justice event this past September, where we were kind of just talking about water equity, and we brought together the mayor of East Palo Alto, a consultant who used to work for the state water board, some policy professionals, some representatives from other CBOs like CRC, and also, a community member, and had a big discussion just on water equity. And we had a bunch of people show up. We had almost, I think it was just under 70 people come. And they actually, ABC 7 News came out, did a story on it. So it was really kind of exciting seeing so many community members and partners of ours show up to hear more about the issue, and also having a local news station doing a story kind of highlighting some of the issues that our community members are facing. So that was definitely a big, an exciting event, and something I'm definitely proud of, and an exciting memory that I have in kind of some of the work that we're doing here at Nuestra Casa.
Thank you. I really like how when Rosa said that the little things are just as important, and it's like a really good message. Like, even if you don't feel like things are going as well as you want them to, always remember the little things.
Yeah, and I think that's the beauty of working in a nonprofit. I think many of y'all mentioned like people empowerment. It's not like an I, it's a we. So I think the fact that all of your stories included others and like partners, I think definitely shines and explains a what a nonprofit career definitely looks like. Thank you. So just to kind of close off the formal panel, we have one last question. Like I said, I think we all understand the stressors and the current like need of like wanting to know what what you should do as you kind of reach your next chapter, whether it's high school or college. So with that being said, what advice would you give to someone who doesn't know what they want to study? And let's go with Rosa, Belinda, and Zeima.
Yeah. A few things. I think one, be kind to yourself. It's okay not to know. I think we've already said it. It really is. You can change your mind and still get out. I got out in 3 years, and I'm not trying to brag here. I'm just trying to say I changed around a lot and I still got out early. So, like, you're not going to take 6 years. If you don't want to take 6 years, right? I was like, I am out of here. Um, so just be kind to yourself. And then also, like, yeah, like I said, try to all those connections. Like, I got my first real internship that, figured out what I didn't want because I drove one of the professor's cars had broken down, so I drove her home and then she got me connected. Like those little things kind of go a long way. And or even like going to office hours, go to office hours as much as you can with your high school faculty advisors or your college faculty advisors because they can help you figure out what you want to do. And then if you can, get into contact with someone who's doing something similar, whether that's a student or like I can put my email in the chat if you're curious about my line of work or like any other nonprofit or anything, and try to talk to them because they can help you figure out what you like and what you don't like. And, yeah. Yeah, and I'm sorry, I don't know who's next, but I will pass it on.
Belinda.
Oh, cool. Thank you. Yeah, echoing everything that Rosa just said, I think it's okay not to know what you want to do right now. If you're trying to figure out what major to take or where you really want to go with things, you can always change it. Plans change, and don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to try different things too. I know, like, I had a friend who probably changed their major like 4 times throughout their undergrad, and it was just like they got in that major, they took a few classes, they're like, this isn't for me, found something else that they were interested in. So don't be afraid to like try different things. It's okay if it doesn't work out, but yeah, I think just it's okay if things change. I also want to echo what Rosa said about like networking and reaching out to people. Like, if you're interested in like anything at Nuestra Casa, like, please feel free to reach out to Rosa and I. We can definitely talk to you more about like your interest, if you're interested in like water justice or environmental justice. Connect with people and hear more about, what are they doing on the day to day. And what does their job look like, what are other careers maybe that they've had, and why didn't those work out. You can learn so much just from like hearing people's stories and kind of what got them there. So I would definitely recommend networking and seeing what other opportunities are out there. So yeah, that's some of my advice, and I'll pass it over to Zeima.
I mean, obviously, everything they said, like network, talk to people, even if nothing's going to come out of it, just ask them what they're doing. And then also, like, if you find yourself having made a decision that you no longer are happy with, that is okay. Like, I will admit, I got really, really sad when I was like, oh my God, I'm never going to be an astronomer. And like, I was fine. Like, I was worried about nothing. And I needed to know that it was over, and I'm glad that I was able to accept that, but like accept it and move forward. And then also, like, whatever you're doing, even if it's not what you want to do, like finish it off strong. Like, make sure that whatever you're putting yourself through in that moment is going to be something that like you can like get something out of, right? So if you find yourself like working in a lab and you don't like chemistry, like, leave the lab eventually, find somewhere else to go. But while you're there, like, use that as an opportunity to learn other skills that might be like transferable to another job. And so if you don't like what you're doing, that's okay. Still learn from it and go on to something else and keep going until you find what you like. You're going to keep finding the wrong thing, and that is just one step closer to the right thing. And then also, yes, if you're interested in Friends of the Urban Forest, please let me know, or Jen. We have many opportunities for folks just like you who are still trying to figure out what they want to do. Thank you all. I appreciate the time. It was really lovely speaking with you all.
Yeah, thank you. And I think just a prime example of networking is this series. Just reaching out, reading people's history and bio and like mission. This is how you can like network. I know many people mention like finding your passion and your interest, just doing your own research on an org that you're interested in, and seeing if it's a fit for you, and asking if someone can kind of sit down with you and give you kind of like an insight on what to expect is another form of like just like making sure that you aren't networking. Um, with that, do you want to do?
Yeah, and it's just about time we can start opening it up to the rest of the attendees now. If you have any questions, comments, or anything you'd like to share, then now's your time.
We have about 10 minutes, so please feel free to go off mute and ask your question, whether it's for everyone or a specific panelist, or if you prefer to type your question, please do so, and myself or Jojo would read, will read out your question. And panelists, if you have questions for our audience, please feel free to also ask. I think this one's directed to Zeima.
The question is, did the program that funded your education stay with you even after you finished school? They did not. They gave me like an extension of like 4 months to finish out my degree because the way forestry works, I need to have 2 full summers. But so they funded, basically it was the school themselves, and they funded my work essentially up until I was no longer a student. And then you're like, good luck. Yeah. I hope that answers your question. It's for context, there's 2 ways that you can get into graduate school. No one told me this, okay? And I wish somebody told me this. There's 2 ways you can get into graduate school. One is through like a traditional degree where like, you get accepted into the school, you go through the program. And the other is through like research. And when you're doing that in specific graduate school, you have to be attached to a professor who has funding to pay for your research, or that you have funding yourself. And so essentially like they were granting me funding to do my research because a professor had it. And that's how I was able to get my degree. And if you have any more questions about that, please let me know because nobody told me this.
Yeah. Oh, Zeima, thank you. I just want to I know this was not directed at me, but you deserve to have someone else pay for your education. And it doesn't always happen, but especially if you're going into grad school, even if it takes like a extra cycle or something, get it paid for. You are so valuable and you have so much to bring. And it's just, and being on a research, like it is nice to see the school paying your tuition. So, and yeah. So if you have questions, I don't know. It is confusing, very confusing. So happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Emma, for that question. Jose and Yael?
Yeah, personally, me, I'm Jose. I have a question for, I think, it was Belinda who was talking about environmental chemistry. Am I right? Or was it Rose?
I think it was Rosa or
Oh,
Zima.
Zeima.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Like, how does environmental chemistry look like as like in like a class or something? Like, cause like I'm interested in chemistry, and I'm also interested in like in the environment, so I want to know more about like how does environmental chemistry look like as like a major or a class.
Yeah, great question. So you can go about it 2 ways. You can go through the specific like environmental field. And so a lot of schools will have like departments, right? And it'll be like a department of like environmental research or like sustainability, or you can go through the chemistry department itself. Either are viable routes, but if you go through the environmental chemistry route, then a lot of your like degree focus will include like ecology and biology and all of the other things that play into how the environment functions, right? And so it's a lot more of like an umbrella term. And so then from there, like you oftentimes will find like your specific concentration. And so you could either do like soil chemistry or like water chemistry. And then even within water chemistry, like we were doing pharmaceutical research or pesticide research. And so it can get really granular. And so like my advice is to stay like initially go ahead and remain more of that umbrella term. And so you can figure out through like process and elimination the specific field of it that you want to go through. And a lot of that is just through exposure of speaking through your professors. I mean, then making sure when you're picking your classes, that you're picking like a variety of different classes so that you're not just like pigeonholed into like one experience. And then, like I said, like with the science route, no matter what kind of lab you work in, it's viable lab research. So like get your foot into a lab, even if it's not the exact kind of science you want to do, because a lot of those skills will be transferable. I don't know if Rosa or Belinda maybe have anything to add.
Thank you. Let's see if there's another question. I think there's one for Belinda. The question is, I know you didn't like it, but what were you interning for at Congress, and what did you do when you got your first job there?
Great question. So I started actually interning. I interned for my congresswoman, who I really liked interning for. I interned for Congresswoman Barbara Lee back in 2018 when I was an undergrad. I was probably like going into my junior year. And I took like a class, I think actually on like politics in Congress. And I was like, I think like I want to learn more about this issue and get more involved and see what my congresswoman's working for. And I found an internship. And in the office, I did some policy research on, I actually did some environmental policy research, just doing like a little memo for staff on an issue that I cared about. And, but for the most part of my day to day, I was picking up the phones, talking to constituents, taking down their opinions, seeing how they wanted the congresswoman to vote on certain things, helping staff with little tasks, whether it was getting things ready for a community event or a town hall of some sort, helping schedule events, a lot of administrative stuff. So that was kind of what I did there. And that was in the district office. So that was here in Oakland. If you go to a CSU, and I know St. Mary's over in Moraga and Dominican University over in the North Bay, there's a internship opportunity that's fully funded called the Panetta Congressional Internship Program. And I applied through that through my CSU. I went to Cal State East Bay, and I got a fully funded opportunity to actually go study in DC and get class credit for it. So from there, I got to work full time on Capitol Hill for a member of Congress from California. Was able to do a lot more actual like policy research, go to the House floor, go to legislative votes, and they covered my whole tuition and paid me a stipend for that. And I also got 20 college credits for it. So that was what I did there. It was a lot more actually like being in DC and actually in the politics of it all, but also in the legislative policy, while still doing administrative stuff like picking up the phones and doing research and memos and replying to letters. It was a really exciting time. And like I said, I thought I wanted to do it full time afterwards because I really liked it. It just didn't end up being what I wanted to do afterwards full time. And I think COVID really kind of impacted that and a lot of kind of national events. But it was a good experience and I learned a lot from it.
Thank you. Does someone else have a question? I think we have time for one or two more. Please feel free to share your question in the chat or go off mute.
It looks like Angel has a question.
Yeah.
That was an accidental type. I have one in the meantime. I think mental health is huge in whatever field that you work in. So what are some things that you do to kind of take care of yourself, like any self-care tips, since everyone's doing wonderful work, but I can't imagine that it does get heavy and overwhelming. So what are some like tips you have for people? Yeah. And I'll just open it up to anyone who would like to respond.
I can go first. Yeah, that's a really good question because I think making sure that you're taking care of yourself, outside of work and just on your day to day is really important to, just for yourself. What was it? There's like, my dad always says it. There's like this Emily in Paris quote where it's all like, I don't, you work to like live your life, not to, you don't live to work. So make sure you're taking care of yourself. Like, I think for me, like taking care of my mental health is really just like exploring, like kind of, just making sure I'm doing like what I'm passionate about, getting myself outside after work, going on a run, making sure I'm like exercising, checking in with friends and my loved ones. I know sometimes there's like days after work where I'm just tired and I just want to put on Netflix and I really have to like push myself to go outside and see the sun. So yeah, just making sure I'm like staying social, like taking care of my body. I've definitely been trying to, just like take care of like myself physically, mentally, um, you know, whether it's like a retreat or, going to therapy, like that is really important to like be your best self. And for me, also really important to show up and do my work the best that I can. So, yeah, those are some ways that I kind of just take care of myself on the day to day.
Yeah, I think same as Belinda, the exercise component is really key, especially if you're going into undergrad. It'll just help clear your mind or anytime. And then I think just because this is a career panel, when you're looking to get a job after whenever, maybe next semester, look into a job that is really gonna like take care of their employees. Like I could go on and on about like the mental health benefits and wellness that we receive to take care of ourselves, and it's insane. I've been told that no one has ever heard of like what we have in place. So go find something like that. And try to make sure that your boss values your mental health and like values taking care of your body, and you'll be more productive for it. So yeah.
I like to sleep a lot, so I make sure to always get like 9 hours of sleep or I am useless. And I don't work more than 8 hours a day. I refuse to. Like I will do it sometimes, but very, very few. And I expect that from my employees as well. So I recommend always finding and asking about the job culture and making sure that they also care about your mental health.
Thank you, everyone. We are at time, so I do want to be mindful and respectful of everyone's time. But before y'all leave, I did share our panelists' emails, but I'll go ahead and reshare them just in case. But this is our second session. We do have two more. Let me go ahead and share our screen. Next week, we have a series on the outdoors. So if y'all are interested in different opportunities, whether it's at a national park or a guide, please feel free to tune in. And then finally, to close off our series, we're going to have a conversation with Canopy staff in case you want to learn more about what we do here at Canopy. Let me go ahead and stop recording. Can everyone help me in thanking our guest on this call? I think